We're on stitch number 1. We're at a needle position of 0, and we're going to start this first sample project at 1. So we take the short side of the paper, we line it up with our 5/8. We're going to put the presser foot down and our needle in. Now, the first thing you're going to learn to do is a pivot. So that means that your needle is in and you pull your presser foot up. The needle is still holding your material, or in this case, the paper. We want to make sure that what we're doing here is another 5/8, and that's not quite 5/8. So this time I'm going to use the hand wheel and manually pull it another couple of stitches, needle in, presser foot up, okay, presser foot down. Now I'm going to sew down this side, but I'm going to change this, the stitch length to 2. Now a stitch length of 2 is a little bit wider of a stitch than 1, so it goes a little bit farther. It takes a bigger chunk each time. So now we're going to pivot at and we want this to be 5/8 again. So needle in, presser foot up, pivot your material, 5/8. Now we're going to change it to 3, because you're going to do a border all the way around, and each side is going to be a different stitch length. Now, because 3 is so much wider than 2, it takes even less time. We're going to see how we got, if we got to 5/8 yet. So needle in, presser foot up, pivot. Well, we're not quite there. So I think 1 turn of the hand wheel should take us there. So we've gone way too far. So we're going to go backwards. So I'm going to press the back lever and still use the hand wheel towards us, because I'm telling the machine we're going backwards. Let go, needle in, presser foot up, pivot. It's between 5/8 and 6/8, and that's fine. We'll bring it back to 5/8. Now we're going to change it to a stitch length of 4, and we're going to complete our border. There we go. Okay, needle up, presser foot up. You can take the paper out. Now we're going to use the short side, and we're going to start playing with the machine. That means that you get to choose any stitches you want, and you need to do at least 4 different stitches. So I'm going to start at 4. Now, notice every time I change the stitch, the settings up here change. So for a stitch number 4, we should use a needle position between 2 and 3. So let's do 2.5. It also tells us that our stitch length can be between 1 and 3. So let's start at 1 and see what that looks like. Now I'm going to just go halfway, and I'm going to change the other setting for the stitch length. So it says I can go between 1 and 3. I started at 1. Let's go to 3. Let's see the difference that it makes in the stitch. needle up, presser foot up. Well, it did make a bit of a difference. This is much closer together, and this is much farther apart. So now we're going to try a different stitch again. Let's try 5. So it tells us that our needle position can be between 3 and 6. So let's start at 3. It tells us that we should have a needle stitch length of 1. These are not hard and fast rules. Really depends on the kind of stitch you're looking for. To get the optimum, they're saying that these are the stitch settings. So I'm going to line this up beside the first stitch. And I'm going to start sewing. But I'm also going to change some of these halfway through. I think I'm actually going to change it a third of the way through. So it tells us that we could do a stitch length, we should do a stitch length of 1. But let's try a stitch length of 3. Now I'm going to change the needle position. So I want the needle up out of the material, and then I'm going to move it, because watch what happens. I don't want the needle to tear the paper or later on my material. So now I'll put the needle back in. Okay, needle up, presser foot up. So it's made quite a difference in the type of pattern that we've got. So now you're going to do 2 more stitches, and you're going to play with the stitches that you've got available to you. See the difference. In what we sewed. Now we're going to set our machine back. We're going to put it at a stitch length of 2. We're going to put the needle position back to 0. We're also going to put our stitch back to number 1, because now what we're going to do is we're going to build a square, a small square, a small triangle. Then on this half of the paper, we're going to combine them, and we're going to build a house. And we can put the marks down for the corners, for the square and the triangle. Your house should have a roof, a main floor, a door, 2 windows, a chimney, and some smoke. And that's what you're going to build now. So we're going to start with a square. And you have to pivot. Needle in, presser foot up, pivot. Okay, that's not bad. Now I'm going to do a triangle. Needle in, presser foot up, pivot. I didn't do too bad for getting a square and a triangle. Now I'll do a house.